Right, this is day 3 of my exercise log. I started off here with, once again, some shoulder warm-ups. I like doing it with a band, but I think I can, however, place my hands a bit closer to each other to put a bit more tension on the band itself. So yeah, just doing rotations like this all the time, and it helps a lot to just warm the shoulder up, that it's not too tight. And I've been doing this for a couple of years now, actually, possibly for the last like 2 years or 3 years. Most recently I started doing this as well, where I do trying to focus on the rotator cuff. You'll see that some people use dumbbells instead, where they have dumbbells in their hands and they try and do this same rotation, but there is no benefit from that because there's no tension that's exerted on your shoulders like in this horizontal direction. It's all just vertically going down to the floor, as the dumbbell weights is of course pulled with gravity. Then I went over to do this. You see I just got an anchor point down there, and my elbow is moving a bit too much to the front when I'm doing this rotation, so it should be a bit better. And I think I can do it also a lot slower. But it's also good to warm my shoulders up properly, because sometimes when I move I can feel there's also like a crunchy noise inside and that it's not entirely smooth. So by warming up the rotator cuffs and strengthening the shoulder inside before a big workout with heavy lifts, it definitely helps to avoid any further injury. Then this is just something that I always want to do, as it helps me to improve my posture, as it opens up my back. I do these actually quite fast. I should slow down quite a bit. So it's about 10 reps per side. And the goal, of course, is to touch your back, let's just say your shoulder blades and your shoulders, on the mat, while your spine is completely, or for example, when this leg is in this direction, it helps to activate a rotational force from your hip all the way through. So sometimes when you're a bit stiff and you do rotations like this, you can feel your back opening, especially your spine, because it has been so compressed throughout the day. Then just doing some cat-cows. Here I did not flex my core too much, so there might be a bit more flexion here than in comparison to an older video of mine. I suppose it was day 1 of this, which was also again an upper body day. So cat-cows, it's once again, I just need to focus on my mid-back, because I'm always hunched over with whatever I'm doing. So I need to put a lot of focus into doing this. I also need to try and put a roller on that peak that I have right there. So when I'm at home, I still have to do some rolling out and some further stretching. And I've also realized that I have to consciously think that I need to keep my head up more throughout the day. I have to keep my chest up even more, and I also need to rotate my hips so that it's a bit more tilted forward, and I don't have my lower back and my bum arched out. It should be a flat back. And that of course happens with keeping your core tight. This is of course a core exercise, trying to keep myself steady while moving the dumbbells. The dumbbells aren't too heavy. I mean, if they're heavier I will definitely fall over, but it helps a lot to just activate the core before doing other heavy lifts. So then I continue to do some bench press, some flat barbell bench press, and I'm just trying to keep this movement the exact same as what everything else would be, not doing it too fast. So the first half of this warm-up was to try and keep it as what a normal set would look like. The last part, of course, was a lot faster, and then now again it's nice and slow and trying to get the right muscles to be activated. Then I went over to do 60 kilos. It's not heavy at all, but it is for me always a good starting point with the bench, because I would say this is just a bit more than what a normal bodyweight push-up would be, because I'm weighing around 84, 85 kilos, or let's just say if I would do push-ups, that's around 45 to 50 kilos of weight. So this is something similar, just a bit more. And then went over to 80 kilos, and yeah, definitely seeing some improvement already with my bench, as my elbows are tucked in quite a bit more, so I can avoid any other excessive usage of my shoulders to avoid shoulder injury over time. I do see here that my bum is picking up off the bench, so I have to try and look at that next time. Maybe my feet placement has to be different, maybe a bit further out or a little bit further in. I'm arching, but also not too much. I'm trying to keep it as flat as possible. So I just did a bunch of 100 kilos on the bench, around, I think it was 10 reps, 8 reps, possibly then 6 reps, as the next video will also demonstrate. So I do think my form is good. I did start to move my arm or my hand placement a bit closer, as I'm thinking before it was a bit too wide, so when I went down my arms were not completely at a parallel. So here are, or not parallel, but like a 90-degree angle. So I think this is already much better, but I can try and place my hands even a bit closer to try and get to the best possible position when doing flat bench press. So this was just a complete barbell day for me, doing flat bench and then incline bench. It's a pretty intense day, and after flat, incline is actually pretty heavy to do. So doing 60 kilos on here felt really heavy. Then this is 80 kilos, and 80 was extremely heavy. I mean, in the past, just like the week before this, when I started with this, I could do 10 reps easily. Now I'm already starting to struggle with like this rep 3. And the weight is coming, I think, a bit too fast down to my chest. It's not like smashing, but it is a bit too hard, the force on my chest. So I decided to drop down the weight, go back to 60 kilos, try and do a much better controlled repetition. I think that is also better for muscle growth, as I can actually concentrate on the chest being used properly. If the weight is too heavy, a lot of other muscles are being used to move the weight. So I think this is a much better way. Some days, if you don't feel like going too heavy, drop the weight and just do slow, controlled reps and make that mind-muscle connection. Then I went over to do some low rows, and this is something that I saw on a YouTube video from a guy that again quoted Charles Glass. And basically a lot of people, when they do low rows, they tend to go past the 90-degree angle. So where I'm putting it over there, I would lean even further back, which means you're basically cheating the rep, as you're hinging it through your hips and your entire body is swinging. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep my torso, my entire body quite stiff throughout the movement, to ensure that this contraction really happens from the top to the mid-back, so just above the mid-back, So this is in the entire shoulder blade region that this contraction is happening. And from this angle you can see I'm really trying to squeeze, and it's not too heavy because of course I'm just using my back for this entire movement. If I'll be swinging, that stack would possibly be double that size, which is not difficult to do. However, here I'm trying to isolate the muscle itself, just using the back muscles and not anything else. So you can do it yourself. Maybe drop the weight to just feel the contraction, to see where do you actually want to feel it. So now you can see I up the weight again, and because it's a bit heavier, I'm already starting to swing a bit more. So, and because of my lack of mobility, I'm bending through my lower back too much, where I should be bending through my hips instead. So I think I might have to loosen up my hip flexors. I also have to actually strengthen them, so that might come in a future workout where I actually strengthen my hip flexors, because by strengthening them, they might also become more flexible. So then of course the day was already quite heavy for me, so I just ended up doing some bodyweight pull-ups, and I'm trying to get a full range of motion, not all the way to the bottom, not to stop the tension in my back, but at least keep some bounce in there. And here I just try to keep my knees a bit more in the front, as before my lower back had problems when my legs were behind and I had a bigger arch in my lower back. So this felt a lot better doing it like this. And then once again ending off the workout with some static stretches. So here I just stood there and pulled out or stretched out my lats. And it definitely helps to do this. You can really feel that your entire lat from your lower back all the way to your shoulder is being stretched when doing this. And it's about a 30 count on both sides. It's about there. And for me it's important to line up in front of something like this, where I can see that I'm doing the stretch for both sides exactly the same. So then afterwards, when I finished this stretch for back, I mean, you can do other things as well, but this for me was enough for the bit of back that I did with the pull-ups and the low rows. And then chest was two big exercises, the flat bench and incline bench press. So I did that with standing at the wall and just stretching out the pec by placing my hand a bit higher. So there is a bit of an angle there. So let's say that's about a 30-degree angle from the shoulder, and just leaning into the wall to make sure I'm getting a nice stretch in my upper pec, and that is exactly where I actually want the stretch to be. So yeah, I'm doing this both, and then the last clip will just be me doing a posture check and seeing how I look after the session, to have like a reference point going forward. But yeah, I definitely feel that this was a good workout. However, there are days where I feel that I wish I had a bit more time to do certain workouts. However, my time sometimes are very limited, so I cannot always incorporate all the warm-up or all the cool-down that I want to, or even all the exercises that I want to. So I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. However, with the time that I have with those couple of workouts, I do try to use them, or use my time the best I can, by making sure I put everything into that few exercises that I'm doing the day, because I don't want to go and just waste time. And if I'm not going heavy, I'd rather just do something where I'm working on my mobility or my flexibility, or doing single leg things to try and find the parts that are lacking. So all in all, good session. I think I have a good starting point, and I'm excited to see where I will be in about a year from this point by tracking everything. Alright guys, that's it. See you in the next one. Bye bye.